Yo, 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 welcome to Made to Think with your host, Ninjam. Wow, tonight we have another wonderful guest, my second ever guest in the podcast studio, and I'm so thrilled to have him. It took us about a year to get the time, finally to get together, such busy schedules. A wonderful gentleman, massively influential in the health and fitness industry in Vietnam. He's doing some really, really inspiring things right now with this new project that he's got going on, which we're going to get right into. I've known this guy probably 12 years. He's been there for me when I've been down. He's given me some key advice about how to be a better athlete and how to eat better and think better and just generally pull my ass out of any kind of problem that I've ever had. So I would like to welcome the wonderful Anthony from Prime. How are you, buddy?
I'm good, man. Thank you for such a great introduction.
You're very welcome. So just let's start with a few things about your childhood. What made you stand out as a kid?
Yeah, good question. I think, I was always very sociable, and I would get marks on my report cards for socializes too much and talks too much. Little did we know at that time that would probably be what I go to do for a living.
Wow.
And, it was, showing early on in my development that I was a pretty social guy. So.
Wow. Okay. Did you have any fears as a kid?
Nothing significant comes to mind. I think more or less I was just curious about the world and trying to understand, where I belonged in it. I feel like, of course, I was insecure to a significant degree when I was younger, all the way up and through the high school years, I'd say.
Really? That's very interesting because you're super confident now. Yeah. What would you say was your first personal gain in life? Something that you were proud of that you achieved yourself?
Yeah, when I was maybe fourth grade, I believe, I was in the spelling bee, and
really?
that was, I took a lot of pride in getting very far into the spelling bee, and it just kind of naturally came easy to me. Words, I think in general, are just something I've always gravitated towards. I could learn so much and just, really be interested in language and words and their meaning and how to use them in my life.
So that's quite interesting because I know that you've got a bit of a passion for rap, hip hop, and me too. Like I memorized Cypress Hill, Insane in the Membrane. People get so annoyed when I start rapping it all the time. What was your first song that you memorized?
It would be the Beastie Boys, Paul Revere.
Yeah.
I remember being about fifth grade and my cousin bringing that tape over.
Wow.
And we memorized, we would open the lyrics back then, read it, and just again and again and again until it
that's
was
so
just
cool. Yeah, you used to get the lyrics in the tape.
Yeah,
that was awesome. I forgot about that.
Back in the days of the tapes.
Beastie Boys, seen them in concert. What would you say who was the most influential rapper of your era and why?
For me, hands down, Tupac Shakur.
Tupac, yeah, totally agree.
There's just never been anyone like him to me, and he's been the most. He's just the coolest and the most poetical, and just an amazing human.
There's a university in America, like the Tupac University, where you can go and study like the philosophy of hip hop, which I'd love to try. But I'm glad you mentioned it because it was his lyrics that got me into poetry. Him and Michael Jackson. But I've always found it bizarre that when I write poetry, it's the only time my mind is totally silent. And once I try and put like music to it, I can't do it. It's quite interesting. So
you found your way to meditate.
That's my meditation. It is. But you got into a little bit of a rap career at one point, right? Tell us about that.
Just very amateur.
Yeah.
Basically, I had a buddy. I was the general manager of a health club, and I had a buddy who was a little down on his luck, and I let him stay with me. He was couch surfing, and he became my producer. During this time, I was just getting a little home studio going, and we had a lot of fun. We had some songs published, and then we went and had some of our DJ friends spinning them in the clubs in San Diego, and anything I can do to get people moving back then in a different way.
That's awesome. So you're from San Diego. I've been there. I think it's a gorgeous city. It's quite conservative though, right? I remember we got there and we went in a club. It was like 10 to 2. And we got to the bar and then they said the club's closed after we just paid $20 to get in.
It's a military town.
Exactly.
So they keep they keep a little bit of that conservative.
Yeah. How was it growing up around there? Did you have a lot of like places to get out in the wild?
So yeah, so I mean, growing up, I actually grew up in the Pacific Northwest, and my backyard was a forest. So
Wow.
from the time I can remember, I was down there, with a hatchet, chopping on trees, creating tree houses, playing guns in the forest,
Yeah.
and
Awesome.
playing Red Dawn. If you remember that movie from the 80s, Patrick Swayze, the Russians coming in and Colorado. Yeah,
That's
yeah.
funny. We used to do the same with sticks, reenact movie scenes. And it's funny mentioning movies. When I came to Vietnam, the first thing I was interested to do was go and see where all the movies were filmed. And then I found out there wasn't one single war film filmed in Vietnam. They're all filmed in the Philippines or Taiwan.
Wow.
Yeah, very interesting.
I've also heard a lot were filmed in Thailand.
Yeah, and they used a lot of like Taiwanese, Filipino actors. But I think the first film ever filmed in Vietnam, like legally, was The Quiet American. You remember that with Michael Caine?
I don't know.
Now, did you ever get bullied at school? I got bullied a lot, and I must have had 100 fights in school. For me, going to school was actually physically a nightmare. I was sometimes terrified, and I would get in trouble for running out of school to try and avoid fights. So I'd get punished for avoiding fights. I'd get punished for fighting. I was in a very sticky situation. How about your experience? Did you get bullied or did you have to fight at school?
I think every kid from our generation goes through or went through that at some point, almost to the point that you get bullied, and then when you have a chance to bully, you can actually tend to think that that's what you should do, and we kind of, it creates this cycle of negativity. And yeah, of course, I was bullied from sixth, seventh grade on up through high school, and then I became the bully when I was a little bit older. And it's just the human nature. I think when you are taught something at a young age, you kind of reinforce it as you grow up.
Yeah, I think it definitely affected me. Like I'd have nightmares sometimes. I'd have a reoccurring nightmare that I was looking out my mum and dad's bedroom window, and everybody who I'd had a fight with was all waiting outside the house. And it lived with me forever. And then I think what happened with me as I got older, I can be a bit leery and loud and attract attention in bars. And when you've had a few, it takes one thing and then next thing you're having a face off. Yeah. But what I've learned now is I walk away from them situations. And if I see the person again, like the next day, when we're not drunk, I usually have a little chat, invite him for a coffee and go and try and fix it. Yeah. And what you'll find out in general is that both of you have got the same like personal history of bullying or some kind of,
I actually
abuse.
Went to 13 schools in 12 years of growing up. I went to a school almost every year. So I was always the new kid. So I was always trying to kind of find that connection with a peer group. And when in the later years of high school, I feel like I had some stability for 2 or 3 years. That's when I kind of showed my bully self, unfortunately.
Yeah. Now you just bully people in the gym. I think it paid off here, right? Now,
tough love. It's tough love. Yeah.
When you was at school in America, did you ever question the integrity of education? Did you ever feel, that you could, that it was honest or that you were getting the best form of education?
For me, that happened more a little bit later after I was more in university. Yeah. When I was in the younger years of, K through 12, I'm basically just, like I said, moving every year, really trying to just have some stabilities, connect to other people, have friends. So I didn't really question. I tried to just be a good student. I had years where I was honor roll and then some years where I was bottom of the class just because there was no stability early on for me.
Why do you seem to have this thing about not having friends? Like it seemed like it was a challenge for you.
Well, that's one of the things that they said, oh, he's very sociable. And because I had to move around so much, I had to talk to people and make friends. I did make friends everywhere I went. Even one year, they voted me most popular boy or whatever, one of those stupid little awards when you're younger. And I thought it was funny. I hadn't went there the whole year, but at the end of the year, I got some award for this and just little things that I tried to fit in, make friends, and I learned a lot during that process.
That's good. So you mentioned you was in the spell bee, and I think that would have come from listening to hip hop. That's a definite skill from rapping.
Actually, it was after I got into hip hop.
Oh, it was after.
But my love for words.
Your love for words, yeah.
Early on.
What did you find to be the most difficult then? Subject or the most difficult thing to focus at school?
Yeah, I mean, Math didn't really come naturally to me. When I worked hard at it, I did well, but I had to put a lot of effort in. When I felt like I did the work, I felt great and I felt smart, but I think I was just a little bit of a lazy student early on.
Yeah, me too. Now, was there any major incidences that made you stop and think and grow? Like for me, it was probably when my grandma died. My dad just I came home from school, my dad just said, your grandma's dead. And it just hit me like a ton of bricks, you know, but I really started thinking about the value of life and moments. But what was it for you? Change your view?
For me growing up, I mean, I lived with my mom a lot and my grandma at the same time. My mom, grandma, both alcoholics, so it was kind of rough. I think I was pretty independent early on, from around 13 on up. I was kind of the parent of the house. So I think that was something that really was a wake-up call that I need to step into early on.
Okay, now, you know, Americans are known for their sport. Were you one of these quarterback guys or basketball? What was your sport?
I mean, I played sports, but I moved so much that I didn't really get I didn't go far in the high school years. I was more like my junior youth years, like maybe 12 to 15. I was playing baseball and mainly baseball. And I went out for football. I was too small. When I went to high school, my first year, I was only like 60 kg or no, 50 kg, 101 pounds.
Jesus.
It was a lightweight.
So how does that feel? You're sort of genetically castrated.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I didn't really have that problem.
I call it a late bloomer.
It's a late bloomer. I was one of them that
genetically castrated.
I like playing football, but I never got picked because I was just a greedy bastard. Every time I get the ball, I couldn't be a team player. I didn't even know there was 10 other players on the pitch. I just run.
I remember being athletic and I would always get picked for teams and I would do well, but organized sports, not a whole lot until a little bit later.
Were you crazy about girls at school? Like, was that pretty early on?
Yeah, I mean, I remember my first kiss was in 5th grade to a girl named Faith. And that was when that George Michael song Gotta Have Faith had come out. So I thought it was the perfect timing to see what he was talking about.
Jesus. We used to play a game where you kiss your first girlfriend for like 2 hours. You ever used to do that in the grass?
2 hours.
2 hour kiss, yeah, just like proper tongue in it. What made you get into fitness?
Yeah, I mean, both of my parents are not the most healthy, you know, as most of our past shapes our future, right? So we see what people do that we don't want in our own lives, and we kind of gravitate towards those things. And fitness was always something I had for myself. You know, other than education, I always felt like that's something that is mine and I'm responsible. And it actually made me feel good. It made me help me overcome some of those insecurities, help me be more disciplined. It brought out better things that I felt made me stronger.
Did you have a fitness idol? You know, like for me, Arnold Schwarzenegger and Rocky, Sylvester Stallone, just when I saw his body, I was like, I got to get jacked.
Yeah, I mean, of course, all the 80s movies, those are huge contributing to like wanting to just be buff, right?
Yeah.
But I think for me, like fitness idol, I would say they're not as well-known people. They're just people that have written books that like Paul Chek, he's a wise old fitness influencer. He runs the Chek Institute out of San Diego. He's done so much for the community. He's also a shaman. He leads plant ceremonies, plant medicine ceremonies, and he's done a lot, but he's one of the original OGs of fitness. He created the physio ball, the Chek ball. They've used that, and I mean, you can find that in any gym nowadays.
It's funny you mentioned about plants and stuff, because when you think about the history of, like, you know, indigenous tribes, Mayans, I stay with Mayans in South America. I watch what they do with plants every day. None of them get sick. None of them have got cancer. You know, it's bizarre. And now it seems to be this new trend where we're going back to the origins of plants and to further enhance our fitness. It's coming full circle. Yeah. And we'll talk a bit more about that later. Now, what was your views about the rest of the world growing up in the United States? Because you're a smart guy and you've traveled a lot, but a lot of people who just stay in that bubble, they don't seem to give a shit about the rest of the world. And in fact, from what I was taught was that in America, world history is actually a separate subject that you you take. Is that right? Or am I wrong?
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah. So you only
You know,
seem
the
to study-
propaganda is thick in the US, and we're indoctrinated from an early age that
Yes.
the US is the greatest country in America. And honestly, I didn't even dispute that one fact or for 1 second until I moved out of the US and I was like, oh my gosh,
Yeah, I
I've
remember.
been lied to.
I remember I went to Egypt. It was 2003, and there was nobody there because of the war. And I was on a bus with a bunch of big fat Americans, and they were like, "It's too hot." I'm like, "You're in the fucking desert, you fucking idiot." Now, what made you come to? When did you first leave the USA?
I came to Vietnam in April 17th of 2015.
Right, just back up a bit. What
yeah.
did you study at university first?
So I'm a business grad.
Yeah.
I have a bachelor's in business management.
Right.
Yeah, yeah.
Not fitness.
No.
Interesting.
Well, I mean, it does go hand in hand,
Yeah,
right?
especially.
I didn't know. I mean, I was a trainer early on, but I didn't know that there was actually a career path that I could make a living. I just thought, you know, trainer is something you do until you graduate.
Right.
And then, you know, when you start taking it to higher levels, you can see that there's actually a path for yourself.
So you came to Vietnam was your first place, or you lived somewhere else before?
First time out of country to live was Vietnam.
Right. So you came here 2015, right?
Yeah.
And that was with California Wow Gym?
That's right. Yeah.
So how did that come about? This is for the listeners. When I first came here, there was really one big gym, one brand called California Wow. They had one right near Bintan Market, and it was actually funny because it was full of gay people, and it was a notorious toilet. I go in there and just shit myself. You know, I got stared to death.
Yeah.
The death stare.
I actually ran that club at one point. I know all about it.
Was gay. Yeah. So Anthony, I met Anthony at California Wow. Actually, it was the Cali Wow, which became the UFC gym, and he was managing it. But how did you get that job? Did you have prior?
Yeah, so I was a general manager for 5 of the 6 clubs in San Diego before I came to Vietnam. I was up late one night on Facebook talking to a buddy. He was already a district manager out here, and he said, I mean, he baited me really. He was like, "Do you know anybody that wants to come out? There's no talent out here for leadership. We need this in the company." And I was like, "I'm young, I'm single, I have no kids. Let's roll the dice."
That was good. I was a member for that gym for over 10 years. And I remember I met you at UFC. You gave me my membership. And then I got him a stack of references. You probably closed how many deals? 6 to 7 deals off me. None of them went to the fucking gym. It's only me there. And he gave me I got a bunch of free membership. And then I started DJing for Cali Wow as well. It was actually, for me, it was a very professional and looked like a very exciting company to work for. It was
a great club, that one in particular, because that's where I met my current business partner and a load of friends that I currently have now.
Right. Yeah. Seems like a lot of the staff now disappeared, right? But they're still hanging in there.
Yeah, but the clients are still living in that area. Yeah. And they're all my clients now for the most part.
So you came here for that. And I remember when I met you, you had a a partner in the US, and she came over later, right? So I think you were planning on getting married at one point. I'm not sure, but that's now fizzled out. She's now moved away. Same as my partner recently. I'm single. But you met a new lady here who's not only your wife, she's a cracking lady. Hello, my dear. And you got married. And how did that change you? And how did it make you more honest, I guess?
Well, that's a lot. I mean, just the whole process, because we started off as best friends and business partners, and then slowly the trust and the love grew, and then it was just obvious to me. Well, I mean, after a lot of meditation and self-introspection, it was obvious that I needed to move forward and bring her into my life on a full-time basis.
Yeah, I think what I want to highlight, because I was with my last partner. She's a great girl. Hello, Rochelle, if you're watching. We were together for nearly 3 years, but it was through a really, really tough time. We never really had a chance to see like the end product. It was just a lot of stress and trying to work things out. And I was in that situation, which I promised myself I'd never be in ever again, where I wasn't sure if this was the right thing, being together with somebody. And I remember you was like that with your ex. You was holding on to it. She cared about you a lot. And I respect anybody, and this is why I want to bring this up, but if you're in a bad relationship, The only advice I can tell you, just be honest with yourself and get out for the best of you. Eventually it will heal. So 100%. I can see you look so much more focused. And now you've not only found a wife, but she's like your soul partner, your identity.
Yeah, I mean, right? With that circumstance, I had brought her out here, right? I had met her parents before we left, and they said, take care of our daughter. And I'm like, I got this, you know, and she's a great person, a beautiful human being, and I always want the best for her. It was just came to the point where you just realize that I wasn't the best for her. She wasn't the best for me. And no matter how painful it may be, it was better for both of us to move on.
I bet there's a lot of people watching this right now who are like, yeah, I'm in a bad relationship, and it just sucks the life out of you. So if you are, please just do something about it. Life's too fucking short, right? And now, what was so different what was different about Vietnam compared to the USA? How did you adapt?
Yeah, I mean, Vietnam is amazing because it's not so caught up into politics.
Yeah,
you know?
Interestingly.
Yeah, I mean, it is happening behind the scenes, but we don't necessarily know every in and out, every detail. And in the US, it was just so difficult to understand things that I know about, you know, Federal Reserve, about politics, about taxation, about the way that you're basically held as a prisoner there for your entire working life. And I just didn't agree with it. I knew I wanted out somehow. I had an opportunity. So happy that I made that choice. And I wish more people would.
Would you never go back to the US then?
I never say never. But it's highly unlikely. To visit, of course, and I try to do it every year or two. But long term, it just doesn't seem like the place for me.
So you left quite a stable job with Cali Wow, and then you sort of had a period where you went through quite a lot of different changes, which I've seen a lot of people have that, and it was good to see you get through that. But can you just talk about those different fitness networks?
Yeah. Well, when I left Cali, it was actually to take a position as the director of South for Elite Fitness. So it was a promotion in some regards, and it was just a healthier working environment for me. And I went to be with one of my mentors there. She was the COO at the time, Kenda Johnson. And, you know, we had a great run there. We set some records in the company. It was awesome. But then just like anything, you know, when you feel like you're taken for granted, you start looking for other opportunities. I was there for a year, and then I had the opportunity to join City Gym as COO myself. And, you know, help them implement some systems and train the staff up, get everything in order for their extreme expansion that they underwent. They opened the most clubs in the shortest amount of time in Vietnam so far. I mean, it just seems like they're on a tear.
It's exploded now. There were like 1 or 2 gyms 15 years ago. Now there's a gym on every corner. It's insane, right?
But I wasn't there that long. I was only there for a little over 6 months, and I was already plotting my jump into entrepreneurship.
Right.
I kind of knew a new model that I wanted to run in Vietnam. I didn't know how I was going to do it.
Yeah.
So I went on Lazada, which is our equivalent to Amazon Prime. And then I ordered a bunch of kettlebells and a little wheelie cart. And I would wheel down at 5 a.m. a bunch of kettlebells into the park behind my house and battle for territory with the Tai Chi ladies on the basketball court.
That's awesome. Yeah, I remember.
And I ran a boot camp there. And I remember I was getting some clients, and one lady looked at me and she said, "You want me to pay how much to train in the park?"
No way. That's awesome.
But eventually she saw the value and she became a long-term client, and shout out Karen.
That's funny, because when I used to come home from DJing at like 8 o'clock in the morning, I'd see all them people in the park and I'm like, oh, I should be doing that.
I remember messaging you, and you were just on your way in at that time when I was finishing up.
Those days seem like yesterday, but a long time ago for me now. I'm an early bird now. How would you say that corporate environment, what have you took from that now that you have your own company, your own gym? What's been the most important, valuable lessons you've took from the corporation world into making what you've done now?
That's a great question.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, I'm an idealist, so I always thought that, you know, you put people first, and, you know, you pay them the most, and you treat them the best, and you build the best culture, that naturally things will go your way, and they'll stick around, and they'll believe in the mission, and they'll rally behind you.
Yeah.
And you know, it's been tough for me recently because I realize, you know, just because you're paying the most, it's not the thing that's going to keep people around. You know what I mean? It's
do you find that customers are not that loyal in the fitness industry, or they tend to stick
in
with
Vietnam, they're super transient, especially in D2.
Yeah.
Right. You got a group of expats that move in and out every year.
Yeah.
But the core group is there. I mean, we have a significant number of members that, you know, they're lifers. I'm sure they'll be with us for a long time because they know that we're going to continue to evolve and iterate and challenge them and provide new value, more products and services that they're going to enjoy.
That's great. Who would you say are the people that have inspired you here the most, and how did they influence you?
Here in Vietnam?
Yeah.
Good question. Definitely Kenda Johnson. She was here with me for a while. She's back in the US now. I would say Dane Fort was an influence. He taught me a lot.
Just quickly for people, the listeners, Dane, how heavy was Dane when he worked at Cali?
He's a big boy.
He was what, 300 pounds or something?
Plus.
And then what did he do?
He got shredded.
The last time I saw him, he'd lost, I think, 2 of himself. Yeah. He just looked so trim. That was an epic project. So well done on you. So Dane, yeah, and who else?
Well, my current business partner, Aurelian Mayer, he's phenomenal coach, and he's super skilled, super technical.
Hey, Aurelian. Great boxer, yeah.
And then, of course, the number one most influential person to me has been my wife, Quinn. When I first met her, I couldn't even touch my toes. And now I'm doing capoeira and, you know, advanced mobility and loaded mobility. So she's the one to really help me kind of find myself.
That's awesome. Just before we get into the whole fitness thing, you was at a bit of a down point, like me. I had my low point as well. And I remember you coming to my house and you was strategizing your like idea. You had all this thing, but I don't think you had the backing at the time.
Yeah.
So how did you get out of that and get to where you are now? How did you deal with that? I
started small, you know, like I had the business plan written for Primal.
That's right.
A year and a half before, while I was at City Gym. I had it written. And I was just looking for the right opportunity. I knew I needed a Vietnamese business partner. I knew I needed some investment to get it off the ground. And I just started where I was with the people I knew. And then, you know, slowly, you know, month by month, year by year, we built a great group of clients. And then I met my business partner today through that.
So when you do a business idea like that, you have to have a clear idea. Like if somebody's going to invest money, you need to give them a time frame of when you're going to pay that back.
Yeah.
And then what usually happens then? Do you still stay in a partnership, or how does that work out?
Yeah. So, I mean, you just have to have a clear plan, right? And it helps if they are adding something to the business that isn't your skill set. I had some other buddies that are in the fitness industry are like, yo, we should do this or that.
Yeah.
But we actually have the same skill set. We're sales guys, you know, and we have a lot of the same skills. So my current business partner comes from a marketing background.
Right.
And he has already sold businesses, super well-versed business acumen, high-level thinker. And he's been just invaluable to us.
That's like good little tip. When I was working in the restaurant industry, like working with people who don't care about people, that are, you know, shy, or they're not sociable, and they don't really care about food. Those are the worst kind of people to work with. And they're the ones who, like, you know, micromanage you, and they strip you of all your ideas and your inspiration. You know, I promised myself from now on that I'll never ever work in that environment ever. You know, I'll never torture my soul. So you've got a bunch of people around you that are all adding to this new dynamic, right? That's awesome.
Yeah, I actually grew up in F&B also. My dad had some restaurants growing up, and he told me, nights, weekends, and holidays, son, this is my life. This is what I do.
Yeah.
And I was always a little bit disappointed that he wasn't there because he was working so hard, you know? So I do not blame you for wanting to get out of that.
For everybody who's in F&B, I mean, I do respect it. I think at the end of the day, it's the good memories. You know, we all get together for gatherings, and it always includes drinks and food. So it's super important, right? Yeah. So respect to everybody out there. And now, what advice can you give to people who are trying to get fit? First of all,
I would say just start with simple habits. You know, sleep, regular movement. whatever that may be for you, even walking just to get started, it's enough to kind of build your base, right? And then you want to work yourself up to getting consistent with, 2 to 3 days of blue zone cardio, get some strength training in, and try to find a consistent program that works for you, something you can do consistently, no matter if it's 1 or 2 things.
Yeah. When I was like having my downfall, I didn't have any money. I had no job. Lockdowns and all that made me go crazy. But I started walking, and I do like a mile, and then it become 5 miles, and then I combined that with podcasts or audiobooks, and I was like, oh, tomorrow I'm going to do 10K because I want to smash through this audiobook. And then it was like 30K.
Yeah.
And it was just this consistency, and I didn't even know it would happen. And then somebody gave me a bicycle, and I remember seeing people in the coffee shop in Town Inn, and I was like, oh, you done a bike ride already? How many K have you done? They're like 25K. And I'm like, 25K? And then I ended up doing 200. You recently got into biking as well. And I used to invite him, and he's like, nah, it's too far. Well, what's the most you've done now, cycling?
Cycling, not a whole lot.
Right.
In the US, I did a 50-mile ride once.
Right.
It's Rosarito to Ensenada in Mexico. And then I've done in Vietnam, maybe like 40.
Yeah, so it does seem daunting, but if you be consistent, like you say, suddenly you're doing these 100Ks and you've still got energy for the rest of the day. In fact, it gives you more energy, right?
Definitely.
So, okay, what are the common mistakes in your experience with fitness?
Yeah, I think just being dogmatic, just thinking that this is the best thing, because there isn't really one thing that's the best.
Yeah.
I think if you can broaden your horizons and do multiple things, and not just pigeonhole yourself into subscribing to only one school of thought or one type of training or one thing is going to be the end all be all, then you definitely will go a lot further.
Well, I see people, especially with I see a lot of people on Facebook all the time. They have these 3 months, measuring the scales, and then they'll just go and pig out again. So this whole people cutting back on carbs. What happens when you do that? And then you start eating carbs again later. What happens to your body?
Well,
when you try to cut carbs out, completely.
Yeah. So you're basically teaching your body to not store, right? And then once it has the opportunity to do it, it's gonna really start putting it away.
So you'd say that you should have a balanced diet overall. There's nothing you can't eat, really.
Well, diet's a tricky one, right? It's all bio-individual.
Right.
There's a lot to it. So what works for me won't work for everyone.
Yeah.
So I think if you can just kind of find what works for you, and that takes a lot of experimentation, right? I've done everything in terms of nutritional approaches, almost everything that you can think of, just to kind of find what works for me.
Right.
Yeah.
So what do you generally do? You just have a free meal a day, or do you take a...
Yeah, so I do some basic time restricted feeding, like 18-6. Intermittent fasting, right?
Right.
And then I kind of follow this. It's called the vertical diet by Stan Efferding. It's basically developed to increase absorption of all your macros. So it's like white rice, vegetables, and meat. As simple as it gets.
Right.
Yeah. But we like to teach people how to do intuitive eating. And this comes, it's part of the process, the journey of self-awareness, and when we start teaching people about nutrition.
Yeah, there seems to be a stigma with rice. A lot of people say it's unhealthy, but there's no evidence that that's true. Yeah, I think it is. So you don't do the brown rice. Is that a fad?
It was a fad for a long time, but there's been a lot of brown rice tested high levels of arsenic. So I think, white rice is, the Okinawans, the blue zones, they eat it. So if it's good enough for them, it's good enough for me.
So how often would you eat pizza or hamburgers and stuff like that?
If I had to choose one, I would go for the burger, right? Because you get the protein.
Yeah.
Hopefully you can get a nice grass-fed or, Wagyu double smash like Be a Craft Cash. It's my go-to recently.
Nice.
But pizza less, because you can just keep eating it and eating it and eating it. And before you know it, you put down a whole pie and you feel like you need to fast for like a week after that.
I'm going to give a shout out to Jimmy's Pizza because he's my favorite. And I tell you what, I almost get the 18-inch.
They're the best. Actually, I just saw they're opening a new one right next to my studio. So that's going to be a problem.
I'm going to give him a plug, but you got to get the 18-inch Mighty Meaty, whatever it's called.
That's the one I
with
get.
extra sauce, extra cheese, extra beef.
They do it right.
Jalapenos. Oh my God.
They do it right.
Now you're making me hungry. Now, we talked a little bit about your nutritional program there. What kind of supplements do you take, and what would you recommend to people that would work?
Sure. You know, supplements are kind of a tricky one too, because it's like everybody wants that magic pill.
Yeah, yeah.
But in most cases, you just need minimal supplements, right? You can go high end to low end, but if we're talking bare essentials, I would definitely recommend a multivitamin.
Yeah.
Right? Maybe some magnesium, some vitamin D, and some fish oil.
Yeah. Zinc?
Yeah, for guys especially, right? Because we know that's going to help with the test. I like it with the copper blend. There's a zinc copper blend. That's a good one. But truth be told, that's about all I take personally. I do take N-acetylcysteine just to kind of boost the production of some of that anti-inflammatory properties.
Something I do smoothies every day, like usually avocado, banana, yogurt, peanut butter, oats. And I used to put a multivitamin in there, the vitamin C, and I'd noticed that my pee was always bright yellow.
Oh, yeah.
And that's the multivitamin flushing out of your body. It's not doing anything, right? So I was told you should avoid multivitamins and get individual vitamins, which is what I've started doing. And I've noticed that I don't have that pee color anymore.
Yeah, what I actually do is I have a multi, and then I have the individual ones, and I cycle them. One day I take that one day I take that one. So, you know, eventually they're all going through, you know, because I don't get that adaptation to where I become resistant.
Do you ever take protein powder anymore, or you don't bother?
Yeah,
you still do that? You think it's worth the money?
I think, yeah, it's highly underrated. Like, I think people need to be consuming a high level of protein, especially if they're doing resistance training. We need 100 to 150 grams, depending on your body weight, for everyone. Females included.
What about these pre-workouts? Are they just piss?
I think they're rough on the kidneys. They're rough on the heart, right? We don't know really, because they're basically some cocktails that are just gonna spike your energy level. And you know, there's some good things in there. I actually take a stim-free pre-workout. It just has some citrulline and some arginine in it. It's a pill.
Yeah.
I used to be a big advocate of pre-workouts, just so I could get, you know, all crazy caffeine rush before I would get a pump. And it's fun sometimes, but I would say try to use it sparingly.
What about creatine? Something I've used in the past.
Creatine, huge thumbs up.
Yeah.
Yeah, cognitive benefits, pushing water into the cell, helping you gain a little bit of weight, get a few more reps out for ATP production.
What does it usually take, do you think, for creatine to kick in? It don't kick in immediately. I think you got to do it for like 2 weeks before you start feeling it.
Yeah, I mean, there's a couple theories on that. Some people do a loading phase. I would just stick with it consistently, your 5 grams a day.
Yeah.
And then
what's it actually doing, creatine?
So it's pushing water into the cell, so you get more energy production.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
It's pushing water into a cell. Okay. Yeah. Very interesting.
And it's usually only found in red, or highly found in concentrated in red meat. So unless you're eating a lot of red meat, you're probably not getting enough.
Now, I took steroids for 3 months in England. I just took some pills. No, I was already in good shape, and all I felt was it started making me a little bit rounder. But the guy that...
Did you get moon face?
Not really, because I didn't take it long enough. But I want to give a shout out to Stephen Neal, my mate from UK, who was my gym partner, and he got me these pills. And I just remember he had a fight with his brother, and apparently he threw his brother like a Marvel superhero across the room, and he was like, I gotta stop taking these fucking pills. So have you had any experience with steroids? I would never touch them ever again. I've seen people, they just look like, you know, the pimples on the back.
Yeah.
Just too much. And you also get fucked later in life, right?
Yeah, I when I was younger, I had some experiences with it, and it was just a waste of time for me. And I feel like if I could do it all over again, I wouldn't have went down that path. But when you're young and you're impressionable, you want to get buff fast, you know, we make choices that we learn from. But I would say, you know, I stretched out my clothes. I was eating 5,000 calories a day. It wasn't worth it in the long run. I don't think once you come off of that stuff, you go right back to who you were before. And for the most part, you might retain a little bit, but I don't think it's worth it.
Okay, great.
Unless you're a bodybuilder and that's your sport. And even then, I would try to get out of bodybuilding, because that shit's going to kill you.
Yeah. Now, how important is stretching? And just before we start that, my ex-partner, Russell, she was an MMA coach. amazing at stretching. You work with Bristol, right?
Yeah, yeah.
She really got me into it.
She's a firecracker.
She's just a belter. But during the COVID, in the lockdowns, I was training with her. I looked like Jean-Claude Van Damme at one point.
Yeah.
And I'd never done any stretching in my life. And I tell you something, since I've stopped doing that, I've got injured a lot. So how important is stretching? Because it's something you really focus on at your gym, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Massive.
So stretching, it's just as important as strength training,
yeah,
in my opinion. Just because if you want to have longevity in the strength training, you need to be getting that mobility and flexibility in. So if you imagine flexibility at one end of the spectrum and strength at the other, mobility is here at the fulcrum, and that's what we focus a lot in at Primal.
So you're doing, before you start any workout, you're doing what? How long stretching?
Yeah, so our sessions consist of a 10-minute dynamic warm-up just to get the muscles not stretched, but blood flow to the area and increase your core temperature, okay? And then we run 30 to 45 minutes of high-intensity training, whether it be strength or HIIT base, whatever the prescription is. And then we finish with about 10 minutes of stretching, which is 100% of the time it happens at every session. So our clients are making amazing results because we don't skip it.
That's amazing. Now, talk about Prime. You run a gym in Taudin. It's the most rich area it's in Saigon. And it's a beautiful gym. It's like completely different from anything I've ever seen. Just explain to the listeners what you're doing there and how you're different from all the other places.
Yeah, we are big into our methodology, which combines movement, strength, and combat. And we kind of have this philosophy that, you know, by tracking all of your results and bringing in some tech components, keeping the training old school and the facility new school, we've kind of merged the two worlds together. So we have tech on every floor.
Yeah.
We have heart rate monitors, gamify your experience on the strength floor. Really popular with the clients. They love it. It's really caught fire. And then we give them points for how long they keep their heart rate up over the course of a month. And we've seen amazing transformations from that alone.
That's amazing.
And on the second floor, we have a boxing and Muay Thai studio. We do two types of training. We do conditioning training, and then we do technique classes. So we have boxing and Muay Thai technique, and then we have Muay Thai conditioning, or kickbox conditioning rather, and boxing technique classes. So you get two methods of training there. On the bottom floor, we mainly do strength through kettlebells and calisthenics. So a combination of that functional training, alternative functional training approach. And then on the third floor, we have yoga and capoeira and mobility sessions, all underneath infrared panels. So it will help you sink deeper into the postures, detoxify, give you some of the good benefits of being under the sun without the harmful rays.
How did you come up with the design? Because I think it's gorgeous. Really, really, it flows all the way through. You've got a great brand. How did you come? Is that your design?
We kind of married the ideas of all the partners together.
Right.
We all kind of are responsible for certain aspects of it. So it was a group effort. And, you know, I hear people all the time say, I expect this in London, Singapore, LA, New York, but in Saigon, wow, what a treat.
And where did what does the word primal mean?
So it's more a reference back to our primitive nature.
Yeah.
Like when things were easier, when there was no pollution, you know, from all the lights in the city, when there was less noise pollution, when there was less industrial pollution, and, you know, kind of taking it back to our roots of, you know, being more animalistic.
That's funny.
The human animal.
That's kind of what McGregor did, right? McGregor changed his career. What was that style of training?
Yeah, so that guy is actually a big influence on me.
Yeah.
His name is Ido Portal.
Yes.
He's a movement practitioner.
Brilliant.
From Israel.
I think didn't you send me the clip for the video? Check, what's that video called for the listeners?
It's called Just Move by
Just
Ido
Move.
Portal.
Amazing.
Yeah. And there's a quote of him on the wall at the gym on the movement floor.
Wow.
And it says, if it's impossible, it's a good goal to have. And he is he's a philosopher and a stud movement practitioner and thought leader.
There's people like that, because I'm very much into ancient history, and I think that everybody was like that back in the day. They were all the highest spectrum of everything, including fitness, wellness, you know, mindfulness. We were all shamans, you know what I mean? Now, What are the best type of people or clients to work with when it comes to being able to help people create lasting change? Because you see so many people, they start 3 months and then they just fail.
Yeah. I think we always want to appeal to lifestyle clients, right? But most of the time someone comes in and says, I need a six pack, I need a bigger butt, you know, and you get those people coming in. I don't want to lift and get too big and bulky is the famous one that, is, you know, a lot of women are known to say. But at the end of the day, if we, whatever the goal is, it doesn't really matter if we can get you in and just build some momentum, and then you get exposed to what it takes to become a lifestyle for yourself, then you'll stick with it for the rest of your life. And it's not going to be that you get that six pack in 60 days and then you go back to eating McDonald's every night.
Now, how do you integrate functional movements into your training programs? And why do you believe that they are important for overall fitness and health?
Yeah, so we draw from a couple schools of thought. There's a couple things out there. There's a guy named Naudi Aguilar, and he teaches a method called functional patterns, which helps restore people's posture and optimize their mechanics. There's also David Weck from the Weck method. We draw highly from his teachings, and he's also an inventor. He's created a lot of fitness devices and gadgets, and he's one of the first people to begin the rope flow program that we like to use. And then also there's Goda Locomotive Systems. They actually derive their school of training from thousands of hours of slow motion video, and also the Western African tribe of the Maasai people.
Wow.
So they've done a deep dive on proper biomechanics. So just how you load the pressure from the foot all the way up the kinetic chain. And a lot of different things we do, animal flow, we're doing capoeira, we're doing these alternative functional training approaches because Vietnam's really stuck in the bodybuilding paradigm and people are just getting hurt and they're having pain. They don't know how to get out of it. And so we're trying to bring some newer methods to the table.
Who's the guy you got working there who's like super flexible? He does something different.
Malu.
Yeah. What does he do there?
He is a high-level yoga practitioner.
Right.
Yeah, and he's a good friend of mine. I've known him since my elite days, or maybe even the Cali days. And he's so talented and, such great energy and so knowledgeable. He's taught me so much. He's actually working with me to help me on my handstand press. That's been my goal for this year.
The handstand press. Yeah. So how important has yoga been? And I've done yoga once and I had some big Americans ass in my face and that was like a bad experience. But I should get more into it. How important is yoga?
I think yoga, if you can only choose one thing, which I said before, don't be dogmatic, but if you can only choose one thing, probably the most upside of any one thing that you can do, just because of all the mental benefits and obviously the physical benefits, and you can just do cool shit with your body, right? At the end of the day, it shouldn't just be about how you look. It should be about how you feel, how you move, how you experience life.
Right.
And I think yoga will contribute a lot to that for most people.
Do you do that every day?
I don't really do too much yoga, actually. I do a lot of mobility training. I do jump into some yoga periodically, but it's not a consistent practice. I'm doing a lot right now with my training, and that's kind of one of the shortcomings I have is I like to do too many things. If I could just be focused on one thing, I would achieve my goals faster, but I'm kind of strewn about a few different pursuits.
So what about meditation? I know in all the houses that I've been in, you always have a space where you meditate. It's very important for you.
Yeah.
I have my forms of meditation, which I think like reading or walking, listening to podcasts, that's my form. But how's that important to your life? Your mental?
Well, jokingly enough, my wife would probably say I nap as much as I meditate because sometimes you fall asleep, and that's just what your body needs. So, but all jokes aside, it's super important for me because I feel like that is the one thing, even more so than fitness, that has impacted me to kind of, stop doing the stupid things that I did before that were self-sabotaging me, gain clarity, to just give myself time to quiet the mind because I'm always thinking, racing thoughts all the time, laying in bed, wake up in the middle of the night, write notes in my phone. If I wasn't meditating, it would be even more. And having that time, when I left my relationship before and going into this, Quinn was my business partner, and I didn't necessarily want to blow up my business. I didn't know if that was the right thing to do.
Yeah.
So I spent a lot of time like going through this in my mind, and then letting it go, and then letting the universe kind of guide me if it was the right direction for myself. And so far so good.
Yeah, and that is actually quite a big risk going into business with your wife, because if shit goes tits up, right? Now, just want to focus a little bit more on this mobility and flexibility, because it's something you've really got me thinking about, as did Russell, more than lifting heavy weights. I know fitness guys that frown at me for doing 100K on a bicycle. They think it's unnecessary to push yourself so hard. But what role does this mobility and flexibility play in your training routines, and how do you incorporate these elements into your clients' workouts?
Well, if you want to have longevity in training, you want to do it for a long time, you got to take care of those joints. Yeah. So it's a non-negotiable for everyone that I work with. It's just baked into our programming.
It's interesting. I watched a documentary about people who live for a long time.
Centenarians.
Centenarians. And there's like 6 or 7
blue
locations,
zones.
blue zones, right? And it says that Japanese people, especially, they're always out in the garden. They're always moving around, right?
That's where Mr. Miyagi was. It's true.
And then you see Americans like, Wally sat in their lazy boy chair, just absolute zero mobility.
Well, there is a blue zone in Southern California in Loma Linda. And my stepmother is actually a nurse in that area. And they're all throughout I think there's some also in Greece, right?
Yeah, that's right.
I'm not sure all of the areas, but these people, they've adopted these practices that kind of lend themselves to longevity. And I think we can learn a lot from them. If you haven't implemented some of these things already, you should have a look.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of them live in high places where they have to walk every day up and down,
Social relationships, highly underrated social component of longevity.
So if you haven't seen your penis for a few years, he's your man. No. Who's been the biggest influence on you as a health practitioner, or who are your mentors?
Yeah, Paul Chek, probably one of the best. Like I said, Peter Attia. I would say this guy. He's good. He's kind of crafted my latest outlook on what I need to spend my time doing, the non-negotiables, the things that I must do. Andrew Huberman's great. Joe Rogan's great. There's a wealth of knowledge out there for people. But I would say the one thing I learned the most from, the podcast that I learned the most from, was it's called The Art of Move. And it's very interesting. And I recommend everybody who listens to it to start with episode 1 and work your way up, because I believe they just disbanded it. But there's maybe 100 episodes there of just some really great knowledge, and it's really been a huge impact on me and the way I think about movement.
I was always into Bruce Lee. I think Bruce Lee was the one that got me into just because I used to replicate things and that, trying to do the kicks and everything. Do you think he was the real deal? Do you think he could after somebody in UFC or what?
I mean, those guys nowadays, they're so polished. He was definitely a pioneer. And we use some of his training methods to this day. Certain things I think he was doing that I don't think there's a lot of upside to, the muscle stim and what have you, maybe for post-operative patients, but I don't think there's a lot there. But in terms of his understanding of philosophy and just his practical application, I don't know if I'm bought in on those videos where you see him playing ping pong with the nunchucks or the 1 inch punch.
It looks fucking impossible. But now I want to say, so I actually went to a seminar with Danny Insanto in England. I got invited with a friend, and we went there, and I did a little bit of Muay Thai, but my mum and dad, they didn't want me to do martial arts because I had a big problem with breaking bones. I broke 19 bones, right? So my idea was I'll go and do Muay Thai. I got into breakdancing because I wanted to try to figure out how to fall over and not break a bone.
Right.
But my mum and dad were like, no, you're going to get hurt. So I went to this seminar anyway. I want to give a shout out to Master Skin from Manchester, Sandy Holt. Sandy Holt's Thai boxing, brilliant guy. And I went to this seminar, and my friend was there, and Danny Insanto, he was the partner who created Jeet Kune Do with Bruce Lee.
Wow.
Yeah, he's in the movie. They're the ones who set up the school. So he said, anybody want to volunteer? I'm going to show you how to diffuse the situation. So my mate got up, and he's like 6'3", big guy. And Danny Incenso just rolled up like a magazine. I think it was like a Vogue magazine. So it wasn't that thick. He rolled up this magazine. My mate walks over, and before he even bats an eyelid, Incenso hit him right on the pressure point here with the edge of the magazine, right? And it was the way he did it. It was almost like a chopstick. And my mate just dropped. Boom.
With the handle of it, the end of it.
Just rolled up.
Oh, yeah.
There wasn't even a spine. It was
like
just
it's like a broom handle
and
then.
it just hit the neck or whatever, and he just diffused him, and he dropped like a sack of spuds. That I thought was ingenious. So that's where I knew that people talk about the one punch of Bruce Lee. I think that he did know how to do that, the death punch or whatever. Very interesting. Now, there's a bit of
the death punch is different than the 1-inch punch.
The 1-inch punch, sorry, the 1-inch punch. I think
the 1-inch punch could be legit, but how could you practice it in reality, right?
Yeah.
You have to have a very measured setup. Right?
What do they call the Wing Chun?
Wing Chun.
Yeah, Wing Chun.
Yeah.
I met a guy. There's a school in Vietnam. And those guys, they can push you like very far away, really close. Yeah. It's all about the energy.
Yeah.
Now, something I wanted to bring up, because a couple of my listeners asked me to ask this question: the ice bucket. There seems to be a confusion as whether it's beneficial to do it before workouts or after. Me, having listened to Rogan, and what's the guy called? Huberman, yeah. Rogan swears that you should do it before. Now, tell us why that is.
I think it depends on the goal, right? If your goal is strength and muscular hypertrophy, you want to do it before.
Right.
Because if you go into it, there's actually a Japanese study out on it. It's been mentioned on Rogan numerous times.
Yeah.
That if you cool your core temperature, then when you go into train, you're going to stay in that cooled state, and you can actually get more reps, which correlates to more strength, more gains, right?
Right.
However, if you're an endurance athlete and you want to reduce inflammation, or you want to get some thermogenesis, you're wanting to lose weight, and you want to activate those brown fat stores on the back of your neck and back of your upper back, then, before or after, it's okay. Yeah.
So I heard if you train hard and then you're doing ice baths after, that it actually
blunts the inflammation.
Yeah. Does it not stunt the growth of your muscle though?
That's what I'm saying, right? That's why you'd want to do it prior.
Right.
Right. But if you're an endurance athlete, or if you're doing contrast therapy where you go in and out of the sauna, ice bucket,
right.
If you aren't trying to get that vasorestriction dilation happening, kind of train the arteries to expand and contract. You get the pins and needles in the legs. You ever feel that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, I go to a local spa, and they've got the ice bath. They've got a sauna, steam room. So I've been doing this thing. I think they call it the Viking cycle, or the Nordic cycle, or something like that. Cool. And it's based off what they do in Iceland, where they go in these really cold. So what I do is I usually go in the sauna for 10 minutes, steam room for 10 minutes, and then I do an ice plunge, which is freezing. Then I go in the hot jacuzzi. Is there any negatives about doing that, would you say?
To my knowledge, I would just avoid steam rooms in general.
Why?
Because they breed bacteria, and you get that mold, you can get those viruses, carries all that stuff.
Oh, really?
It's wet air, right?
Interesting.
So I would say stick to the sauna, drop the steam room, and then try different breath work while you're in the cold or while you're in the hot. Try different things to kind of help you gain some more upside out of it.
I'm glad you brought that up. I invested in a Garmin watch a couple of years ago now, and it was the greatest thing I've ever had. To be honest, at the moment, I'm taking it off because I haven't been working out. I've been injured, and it's horrible to watch your stats go down. But I really, really got into the whole Garmin thing. I think it's an amazing bit of kit. It motivated me. It's like playing a game. It's like what you've introduced at your gym. Yeah. You've introduced tech, and people get the fun side of it. Yeah. Like playing a video game of yourself. And I found on the Garmin there is a breath work timer, and I used to do that in a sauna, and it changed me. I'll tell you straight up, I get nervous when I meditate, when I do breath work, when I scuba dive. I've done more than 50 dives. I can never just drop vertically. It takes me ages to equalize and get down because I don't like thinking about my breath. It scares the shit out of me, right? So how important is breath work?
I think it's part of a healthy practice. I'm not consistent with mine. I just do a little bit of Wim Hof, and I do some stomach vacuums, which are just breath holds after I oxygenate my blood. What is this thing though, like with me? I know I'm not the only one, but some people are just scared of thinking about that, Even like when you hear your heart or anything, it can freak you out. You want to be on autopilot with that shit, right? Sure.
Yeah.
I think I had the Whoop, which is another wearable device,
Yeah.
but I recently got rid of it a few months ago because I found I would wake up in the morning and I would feel really good.
Yeah.
And then I would look at my recovery score
Yeah.
and it would be low.
Yeah.
And then I would negative placebo myself. And I'd be like, oh, well, shit, I can't train today. Now I just do it intuitively. I don't wear any tech night to night. And I feel better.
There is a, yeah, it's almost like having a, what do you call them? House arrest. When you wear it for so long, you become so reliant on it. I mean, it's good to switch off sometimes, isn't it?
It has some cool things, right? It has your HRV, which is the best indicator for your recovery. It has the social component. You have all your friends in there and they can see all your scores. You can see who's pushing hard. You have chats. I like that. I might go back to it, but I just want to see how I feel for not doing it maybe a couple months.
We're talking about the downers. Yeah, there's always positives about tech, but you're going out with your mates, you're 10 beers deep, you're having a big laugh, and then you watch his, oh my God, I'm having a heart attack. You fucker. Now, how have you adapted to this new fitness workout that you're doing now? And how's that changed from where you were, when you first started?
Well, everything's new to me all the time. I'm, constantly learning new stuff, constantly implementing new stuff, experimenting on myself so I can, give the most to the clients. And I turn 47 tomorrow. I'm definitely in the best shape of my life. And, at one point in time, there'll be a time where I can say I'm not in the best shape of my life, but this is not the year. And, we, every year, we celebrate our birthday, but our death day passes every year, and we never really think about it. But I want to take it as far as I can.
That's amazing. Now, how do you personally tailor your training programs to meet individual needs and goals of your clients? I think that's one of the hardest things because everybody's different.
Yeah.
Particular those with varying fitness levels and backgrounds.
Yeah, everyone's a puzzle to me, right? And I get to decipher what they need for posture, stability, where we need to get their body fat. It's all just a puzzle to me, and I reverse engineer these goals for them, and we've seen great outcomes, and we have long-term clients for many years training with us already.
That's amazing. Now,
we track everything. I think that's the key.
Yeah.
Right? Because when you go into the gym and you lift the 35s, you curl the 40s, and you're like, yeah, I feel strong. And then what do you do when you come back? You come back and you do the 40s. You go, did I do the 35s or did I do the 40s? Let me just do the 40s again. And then you come back again. Last time, what did I do? Did I do the 35s? Let me just do the 40s. So you end up staying in the same place for so long if you just don't track.
Do you know, it's funny, you just mentioned something that of all the gyms I've ever been in my life, I've always just gone in there alone. And it's like you're surrounded by people that know all this. I guess you have to pay extra for your PTs and that. But I think with what you do there, you're very much fully focused on, giving the customers feedback, being there for them the whole time. Whereas in other places, you just sort of like, nobody gives a shit.
It's a coach-led model. So we invest highly into the coaches. We have some of the best practitioners in Vietnam. We had 200 applicants. We got it down to 10, so we have the best of the best, the strongest team that I could imagine. And even being in the industry here for 5 years, I know that our coaching talent is top level.
Are you thinking about going like bigger corporate style, branching out, or are you going to keep it to the one?
We will open more.
Wow.
But I think a city like Ho Chi Minh and our model would probably be a maximum of 2 to 3 locations,
Okay.
strategically. And then, we'd look at other cities and then maybe internationally.
Now, just something that Rogan talks a lot about, I don't know if you know anything about it, but the stem cell thing, have you checked that out?
A little bit.
Yeah. Is there actually, I mean, I'm hearing amazing things like people who've got serious injuries are just recovering. Like,
I think we're in the 56K dial-up modem time for stem cells. It's just too new to say that they work 100% of the time for every case, for every application, right?
Because it's illegal in America, but it's okay in Colombia or Mexico, I think.
Yeah.
Do you reckon that will come over to Vietnam or no way?
It's here.
It's here?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, really?
It's in Thailand. It's here. There's clinics in Taoyuan that are offering it, these injections. It's pricey and it's unproven. So
what is it? What do you know? What's the actual process? What's it doing? It's recovery.
So there's a couple different kinds. There's mesenchymal stem cells. There's umbilical stem cells. There's
umbilical. That's fucking crazy.
Yeah. There's some that they make from your own blood. I don't even know all the different versions of it. But basically, if you can get stem cells from your child or a younger version of you, if you stored your blood in the bank, back in the day, you have younger stem cells, right?
Wow.
So those younger stem cells they proliferate better, supposedly.
Yeah, I mean, this whole cloning thing now, that's what they're kind of doing. It's like you have spare parts for your body, in the future.
Gene editing, CRISPR,
yeah,
all of these things are coming.
You were the one who got me into CRISPR, actually. You told me about that, and now it's like everywhere. It's crazy. Now, just what about these people like who are serious, like vegans, for example? Do you see people like that have more energy in the gym? I guess a lot of people like have these.
I mean, I tried the vegan diet.
Right. What do you see any difference in people's performance with certain diets? Oh no.
I would say no.
No.
People subjectively feel better, whether it's for an ethical reason or maybe they just don't agree with certain things. But I've tried everything nutritionally, and I think you really got to go through a few different things and see what works for you. But maybe start with just a basic elimination diet. Maybe start carnivore or something like this, and then start introducing things slowly. But when it comes to veganism, I'm not a proponent of that.
What do you think about like AG1? These all greens. I take some things like AG1. You can't get in Vietnam, as far as I'm aware. But do you think they're decent?
Yeah, supply chain's tough to get those things here, but you can get them from Amazon. Yeah, of course. You want to get all of that nutrient dense stuff you can in your morning smoothie.
Yeah.
I do have an Athletic Greens supplement. It's not the same brand. It's just a greens powder. But get your hands on some of that. Throw it into your fruit smoothie.
Yeah.
I generally drink these chocolate peanut butter smoothies, so it doesn't taste so good in there. I wouldn't advise that.
Now, Danny Jones, I don't know if you listen to his podcast, but he's always going on about these like coffee supplements that are functional for your brain.
Yeah.
Enhancing brain. I don't know if they're
mushrooms.
Yes.
Yeah.
Mushrooms. Can you please elaborate on that?
So I did it for years.
Oh, yeah.
Bulletproof coffees, Lion's Mane.
Yeah. Lion's Mane. That's right.
Man, there's so many different types of mushrooms.
These are not magic mushrooms, though.
No, they're not psychoactive.
Right.
They're just supposed to create some neurogenesis in the brain.
Right.
And I mean, I took them for years, like I said, and I wasted a lot of money on them, and I didn't really notice any benefits.
Oh, really?
But people do say I look younger than my age, so maybe it helped. But I mean, if you got the budget for it and you want to test it on yourself, give it a try.
What about collagen? That seems to be a big thing in Vietnam. I'm not sure people know what they're doing.
Mixed reviews on it, right? There's some people saying that it's cancer causing, just like the biotin stuff. Also the negative effects of iron supplements. There's a lot of things out there. You can take all kinds of crap, but I would recommend you try to keep it minimal as possible and just try to find, the lifestyle components that are really going to give you the upside.
So for youth, if anybody's interested in looking young, because I'm 46 this year, you're 47 tomorrow. We look fucking young, man. Nobody ever guesses my age. And I think for me, it's just always having a positive outcome. And I have a goal in my life that I'm always focused on. I feel like if my eyes are not focused, then my soul's not focused. But is there anything that people can do to stay young, like look young, the magic pill, or?
I always have kind of lived by the philosophy you're only as young as your spine is flexible. Right. So I try to move my spine a lot.
Yeah. And
it's a super highway of all of your central nervous system, all of your bodily functions.
That's right.
So if that is, a well-oiled machine, then everything should be sorted.
I've been using the ergonomic chair and it's phenomenal. I don't slouch on the couch now. I'm not really watching much TV, but it's definitely posture, very important. We talked about this before in the past. It's like your aerial, right? So when you see people with bent over spines, like they're not receiving the energy,
right?
And it's destroying your chakras. Just quickly on the vegan thing, because vegans out there, I heard you're not allowed to eat avocado if you're a vegan.
Really?
Because, right, and this was on a TV show where they asked the question to millions of people, which one of these should a vegan not eat? Apparently, to make avocado, you need to use bees, right, to pollinate. So what's happening in America and some other countries, they're bringing bees from other countries like Vietnam to try pollinate. And then once they've pollinated, the bees die because of the new climate. So millions and millions of bees all around the world are dying because of vegans eating fucking avocados.
I mean, there's a lot of those types of issues, right? You can hear it, You can hear it about, the crops, the industrial fertilizers or the combines. They kill more rodents and small animals than, if you're eating a cow, right?
Yeah.
You're killing more lives. So there's all those arguments out there, right?
All right, we're nearly going to get this wrapped up. It's been a brilliant interview so far. I just want to ask a couple more questions. What are the big no's in life for you?
Big nose.
Not big nose.
I guess I would probably say no more partying for me,
Right.
like past the
We used to go hard. We used to go hard.
All-nighters for me. No more, no more messing around, like we're to the age now where if you're not focused on reaching your goals, then you're not going to get there, buddy. You need to really like dial it in and focus.
I think this age really creeps up on you, and you're really like, okay. I think that's why young girls like older men just don't dick around anymore, right?
They've learned their lessons.
So what are the big yeses then?
I would say more learning, right? Always be a student. Keep
always be a good student.
Embrace the beginner's mind, and more excitement, more travel, more saying more, no more to people that are trying to be an energy vampire and drain your time.
I think I've been like that to some people, and I didn't mean to be, but sometimes you're the problem. If you've got a lot of problems going on in your life, it's
you're the common denominator.
And I've had it. I just woke up one day and I said, enough, man. You know what's the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over all the time.
Expecting a different outcome.
Yeah. Now, how important is it for you to have short-term goals and long-term goals? For me, I got this from, I forgot his name, Jim Rohn. Great mentor. If you haven't listened to Jim Rohn,
the OGs.
He's the OG. I think did he set up Herbalife or something like that? But go on to YouTube and check out The Art of Successful Living. Changed my life. The little steps that he gave me, like one of the big comments was, work harder on yourself than you do on your job. That's always resonated with me. Everybody gets up, goes to work, doesn't question anything. Everybody pays taxes, you pay your rent. But how many of you spend 2 hours a day on yourself? And I generally now do like an hour of workout, and then I constantly learn. And what I find with learning is you start on one topic and then you're led on to something else, right? Never stop evolving, man.
It's funny you mentioned Jim Rohn, because I actually, for years, I carried around a little red book called The Universal Laws of Success.
Yes.
And I would just read it. It was a little pamphlet, actually. It wasn't even a book. And I would just read it, and they all made complete sense to me.
Yeah.
So I kind of just started absorbing his knowledge early on. He's a fantastic.
He's very religious as well, and I get a little bit cautious when I'm getting into something and then the religion's there. But recently I've actually been going back reading the Bible, not the whole thing. I don't study it. I've read Quran. I've read all the ancient texts. I had to figure out what. Some of my research.
Your project, right?
Yeah, for my project. I'm making a documentary right now. It's going to be very interesting. And you see these same things going through. And I think whatever you have in life, what I learned from the Operation Red Pill guys, big shout out to Jason and Chris. They're Christians. My ex-girlfriend was Christian. It's not bad to have something you can fall back on. Now, I'd say I'm more spiritual. I'm a Man City fan. I ain't got time for any more gods, man. But I think as you get older, you start looking for that little bit of peace.
What is the saying? If you don't stand for something, you'll fall for anything.
Right. That's very good.
So if you have something, it's a guidepost for you.
You're not religious at all, are you?
Yeah.
A little bit?
Yeah.
What do you follow?
I mean, well, I was baptized Catholic. I went away from that and just became more of, non-denominational Christian over the years.
Right.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Now, just before we wrap up, thanks for your time. What resources would you recommend for people that want to change their lifestyle? Any books or podcasts? Yeah,
so there's a book called How to Eat, Move, and Be Healthy by Paul Chek.
Excellent.
That's top tier text there. Podcast wise, I already mentioned The Art of Move.
Yeah.
I would definitely also, my classic go-to #1 book that changed my life early on when I was 18 years old was How to Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon.
I was going to say it.
Classic.
Sick.
It helped me so much.
Yeah.
And I think those three.
The Richest Man in Babylon is quite a good read. I mean, it's so simple. It's like the book you should have read
It's basically the Rich Dad Poor Dad before Rich Dad Poor Dad.
Yeah. But it's like, why did they taught us maths at school, but they didn't put perspective on how important it is to save money. Yeah. My uncle, was a self-made millionaire, and he told me, if you just pick up everybody else's dollars for a million times, you'll have $1 million, but it's keeping it there, isn't it? Yeah. So, brilliant interview. Just the last thing I want to ask is, what's your ultimate advice for all the listeners out there based on all your experience so far?
Yeah, take the first step,
Yes.
Just do, even no matter how small or insignificant it may seem, just do one thing to improve your situation. Just move one day at a time. Okay, go out, contact that person, go for a walk, just do something to love yourself today. And one day will turn into two, and the journey of 1,000 miles starts with the first step. So just start there.
Yeah, it's that the first day is always the hardest day. And if you're listening to this and you feel like nobody loves you, I love you. I'm sure Anthony loves you too. You can always reach out to me. I'll give you a hug. And that's the biggest message today, is love yourself and take care of yourself.
Yeah, please come check me out on Instagram. It's primal.apache on Instagram, or you can go to the website primalperformancelab.com if you want to learn more about how we train people to be their best.
Yeah, and it's a fantastic gym. I've been there, trained there. I would highly recommend it. All right, guys, we'll see you in the gym. Go and kick some ass. Go and do a walk. Get out there and have it large. Thanks a lot, buddy. Good night, everybody. Thanks for listening. Cheers.
Take care.